Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Sports Talk with Austin, your daily dose of sports and entertainment. And today on the show, it is officially here, week 6, 2023 of the AP Top 25 poll in college football, ladies and gentlemen. Can you believe it? We're already 6 weeks into the season. It's hard to believe, but we are. And today I'm going to be breaking down of the top 25 teams. We've got a couple new additions. We've got some teams who survived some scares, and we got some teams who stayed put. So let's get into it. And starting off with number one is still no shock. Georgia is still holding on to that number one position, and they just keep finding ways to win. Auburn this week, a couple weeks ago against South Carolina, they just keep eking them out, eking them out, eking them out. Finding championship results when they need it. And the question becomes, the teams behind them are they eventually going to pass Georgia? Because if Georgia keeps having results like these, it could be they could drop them a couple spots. And Georgia looks very beatable. They look very beatable right now, but they're hanging on by a thread, hanging on to that number one spot by a thread. But at number two, right behind them, you've got the Michigan Wolverines, who this past weekend absolutely abolished Nebraska. Put Nebraska in the ground. And, if this was Scott Frost, Nebraska, it probably would have been a little closer. But this is Matt Rule, Nebraska, and Michigan has looked like one of the best teams in the country, except for, i.e., the Rutgers performance and the Bowling Green performances. They put almost a complete performance together other than those two, but they have a very real case that they could maybe jump Georgia, that maybe they should be number one. But they've also had a couple games with Rutgers and Bowling Green where you could say those weren't their best performances. So I can get why they're stuck at two. But coming in at number three, right behind them, is the Texas Longhorns. Texas, arguably has the best resume out of anybody in the top six right now. I mean, they've beaten Alabama. They beat a ranked Jayhawks team, who's no longer ranked, spoiler alert. And they just keep putting performances together and together, and they keep making it look easy. And, Michigan and Ohio State, if they're not careful, Texas may overtake them because they look like the most complete team in the country right now. Quentin Ewers, Steve Sarkisian, the offense has got it rolling. The defense seems to be playing at all-time high right now. They got a big game next week in the Red River rivalry. We will see how they respond, see how legit Texas is. If they can beat Oklahoma, sky's the limit for them. But coming in at number four, right behind them, is the Ohio State Buckeyes, who had a bye last week, so they didn't move forward down. But Ohio State, up to this point, has looked impressive. They had that huge last-second road win at Notre Dame. Kind of that's been what saved their resume so far. I think as Ohio State gets along the Big Ten play, they got Maryland this coming week, got Penn State in a couple weeks. Ohio State's going to have a chance to make their resume look really, really good. And I think them at number four is fine for now. They definitely put a resume, and they've looked like arguably, like I said, one of the 5, 6, 10 best teams in the country. Coming in at number five, another team who had a bye, Florida State, coming off, that huge win in Death Valley against Clemson in overtime. Then, that LSU win, that was Florida State's big resume builder. What the committee was going to look at when we got to CFP time. Well, that win's starting to not look as good anymore. But Florida State right now is at number five because their play overall has been impressive, and the way that they've done things in that fashion has looked very convincing. At number six, you've got the Penn State Nittany Lions. James Franklin company, after shutting Iowa out, making Iowa offense just have troubles all day long. They kind of struggled against Northwestern in that first half. It wasn't an easy game, but then in the second half, Penn State Their talent took over, and they just absolutely ran Northwestern off the field. And now Penn State sitting here at number 6, thinking, "Hey, I get it. The teams ahead of us, have maybe more quality wins, but did you see what we did against Iowa, who supposedly has the best defense in all of the Big Ten, maybe even football? And look and what they did to them. I think there's an argument Penn State could be in the top 3 or 4 right now. Coming in at number 7, you've got the Washington Huskies, a team who has boat raced everybody. And this past weekend, they made a trip down to Arizona, got the win 31-24. And, Arizona, they're a team that's very tricky. And plus, it's the desert, as the Pac 12 fans like to say. So it's kind of one of those, Washington, you don't get an excuse for it because you're the better team. You're obviously way more talented, but you've got very lucky, very, very lucky. Arizona could not make the plays when they mattered the most. But Washington overall, it could be in that argument as well. 1 through 8, I would say maybe even 9 if they can fix their defense, which we'll get to. You could argue have been the best teams all year long. And Washington is definitely in that conversation. They've only had one slip up and they still ended up winning, and that was this past weekend. So it's very interesting. Coming in at number 8, you got the Oregon Ducks, who's coming off the obliteration of Coach Prime in Colorado. And Stanford kind of gave them a test early, but then Oregon's like, okay, kind of like what Penn State went through. You know, like Penn State and Northwestern. Then they turned the Jets on in the second quarter, and everything was right from there. And Oregon, Bo Nix, we'll see what they bring when they get deeper into Pac-12 play and play some of the better teams, Utah, USC, those type teams, Washington. We'll see how they do and see what they're made of. Coming in at number 9, you've got the USC Trojans, who, boy, oh boy, that offense is humming very nicely, but the defense has got some serious issues. After USC went up 34-7 against Colorado, and it was starting to look like Oregon all over again for the Buffs. Then all of a sudden, USC's defense decided, oh, apparently we're not going to tackle. We're just going to leave receivers open. The USC gave up a lot of running yards. I mean, what are you doing out there, USC? Come on. I get it, it's Colorado, and your offense put up 34 points within the first half, and you're up 34-7. But get yourself together now. Like, come on. You gotta tackle and stuff still. And that's why USC's win don't look as impressive as Oregon's. Their defense almost blew that game. Almost being the key word. But USC got it done. And they're lucky to still be in the top 10, in my opinion. I get it, Caleb Williams. That offense has been impressive all year. But if their defense can't fix this, that they ain't never going to contend for a championship. It's going to be a long year for USC if they can't get this stuff right. But they're at number 9. Now, number 10, a team that they play in a couple weeks, Notre Dame, who after that heartbreaking loss to Ohio State at the goal line, everyone was like, is Notre Dame going to bounce back? Are they going to let this slip into 2-3 losses? Well, they pulled out one of the most gutsiest performances in a long time. Duke, hostile environment, college game day was there. And Sam Hartman, 4th and 16, says, you know what? Let me get it done with my legs. Let me get the touchdown. And here we are. Notre Dame holds on for another week. They got another big test coming this week against my Louisville Cardinals. We're going to see how they fare in that. And I think Notre Dame, from here on out, their season in life depends on it. They cannot lose anymore, especially if they want to be considered for the college football playoffs. They can still be CFP contenders with 2-3 losses, but if they want to be national championship CFP contenders, it's win or go home. But Notre Dame, got a gutsy win, and they're still in the top 10. And coming in at number 11 is Alabama. Ladies and gentlemen, Alabama has found their offense again. Jalen Milroe and that offense is starting to look good again. They're starting to look pretty daggone good again. Now I may preface it is Mississippi State. We have to take that into accountability. But Jalen Milroe and that Bama offense is looking good. Looking good. And the defense is doing its thing. Alabama maybe started to put it back together again after a lot of people counted them out and said, "No, Alabama, you're not it anymore. This is LSU's year." Well, Alabama, I think it's safe to say that they're not going anywhere anytime soon. Got a big game against A&M next week. We shall see what that leads to. But Alabama at number 11, you can make an argument they could have squeaked back into the top 10 after USC's performance. But at number 11, Alabama. At number 12, you've got the Oklahoma Sooners, who have found some defense. They gave up 20 points to Iowa State. I know that's not a great look, obviously, but they did. Brent Venables has found them some defense. Dylan Gabriel and that offense has looked very good all year long, but their defense is creating takeaways. They're stopping people in the red zone. Other than this one game, it seems like, hey, maybe Brent Venables has finally turned a corner and helped Oklahoma out, and here we are. Oklahoma at number 12. And I think with Texas next weekend, College Game Day will be there. We're going to learn a lot about both teams, especially if Oklahoma. I think they have a lot more to prove. But congratulations to them for almost getting back in the top 10. Oklahoma, Brent Venables, we're going to see what you're made of when you play Texas next week. Now at number 13, you got the Wazoo Cougars, Washington State, who've been making an impressive name for themselves lately, I will say. Everything seems to be coming up. Cam Ward, Washington State, they've got some big games coming up on their schedule, but their offense is looking really good. They're coming off a bye week. I think Washington State, maybe you could make an argument after, USC, Oregon, Washington, Utah, you can maybe make an argument that they're the fourth best team, fifth maybe in the Pac-12 today. But Washington State at 13, they're climbing right there to the top 10. Is Wazoo finally getting some respect? We will have to see, though. Coming in at number 14, North Carolina, who also was on a bye. A lot of teams were on the byes this week. And North Carolina, the impressive resume that they've put up to this point. And their offense is still like USC. Their offense has been there, but their defense is suspect. And, they're in the thick of things to win the ACC in the early season. They got a big game in a couple weeks against Miami. They got Syracuse this weekend, and that's no slouch. But North Carolina at 14, I think Drake May and the offense, if they can get the defense fixed, I think North Carolina will be fine. Coming in at number 15, off of a big Friday night win, the Oregon State Beavers, after getting scored on left and right by Wazoo, Oregon State goes back home, Corvallis, and beats Utah. Now, not to handicap the win, but it was out without Cam Rising. So I'm not gonna handicap the win. It's a great win, obviously, for the Beavers. But if Cam Rising was there, you'd more likely think it'd be more competitive than it was, 21-7 Oregon State. But Oregon State's looked really good, and they put a quality game together after an atrocious game against Washington State. But the Beavs are back in the top 15, and rightfully so. And coming in at number 16, you've got the Ole Miss Running Rebels. Now, the Running Rebels of Ole Miss, they did it, guys. They finally won a big game. I mean, what a offensive shootout that was this past Saturday. I mean, 55-49, Samir Chugs, Jackson Dart. I mean, Ole Miss, give them credit. They found a way to win, and now Ole Miss sits at 4-1 on the season. LSU dropped to 3-2. Ole Miss, if things fall their way, could we see them possibly making a bid for the SEC title game? We shall see, but Jackson Dart and company looked really good. Obviously the defense obviously seems to be the theme of this week's poll. Defense was a non-factor, but the offense looked really good. And congratulations, Ole Miss, on the big win. Coming in at number 17, you got the Miami Hurricanes, the U, unbeaten Miami, coming off of a bye this weekend. Miami, like I said in my previous videos in the AP poll, 17, no movement really. They're holding on to that big win over Texas A&M, which was also an offensive shootout. But their offense is looking good. Miami looks like one of the most complete teams in the ACC this year, and they look like they're going to be a contender for a while. Mario Cristobal seemed to finally turn this thing around and get it together, but Miami at 17. Now coming in at number 18, you got Utah, and they're starting to show their struggles now. They're starting to show without Cam Rising, they're starting to show some of their weaknesses. And it's one of those things, if Cam Rising is healthy, Utah has got a great chance to three-peat and maybe even run the table. But if he's not healthy, that defense is going to have to save him in a lot of games. And with Oregon, Washington, USC still on the slate, I think Utah needs Cam Rising back. They got a bye week this week, so he's got 2 weeks to prepare, hopefully recover. But yeah, Utah's got to get this fixed. They got to get Cam Rising back if they want any chance to three-peat. Coming in at number 19, off of a hard-fought game, you got Duke. And by the way, it is being reported that Riley Leonard just had a high ankle sprain that he's likely maybe to miss 2 to 4 weeks. I'm glad it was nothing serious, but Duke really needs him if they want to go far this season. And I hope he gets healed up quick, and hopefully Duke can continue winning. But I'm glad the committee didn't drop him out too far. That was a hard-fought game. They had him on the ropes. The defense just couldn't make the play. Sam Hartman made a gutsy play there at the end. But Duke, I still think, is deserving of being ranked. They put together enough of a resume, enough of wins, I think, to stay in the top 25. Coming in at number 20, you got the Kentucky Wildcats making an appearance. After, everyone was doubting, is Devin Leary the right guy? Has Kentucky found their man? They haven't looked impressive all year. Well, Florida found out the hard way. Ray Davis, that running game got going, and Kentucky, Devin Leary didn't have to do much. Ray Davis did all the work. The Kentucky defense did its job, making Florida's life miserable. And Kentucky is now at number 20, and the SEC is starting to look pretty good. And Kentucky next week at Georgia at the Hedges is going to be very interesting. Cannot wait to see who comes out on top in that one. But Kentucky at number 20. At number 21 is Missouri, a team that coming into the year, Eli Drinkwitz was on the hot seat. Now they're ranked number 21 in the latest AP poll. They're 5-0. I think Eli Drinkwitz, maybe has cooled his hot seat at least for now. And Missouri, Brady Cook. Missouri, I think, is going to play some spoiler this year, and I'll publicly say it now. I apologize, Missouri. You're better than I thought you would be, but Missouri, you're looking really good. Your defense is doing its okay for now. Let's see what happens when you play some of the better teams, but Missouri at 21. At 22, you have the Tennessee Volunteers. They're coming back up just a little bit now. After their win against South Carolina, getting it done at home. Joe Milton company getting it done against a very gutsy Gamecocks team. But Josh Heupel and company, just finding ways to win. 41-20. Offense looked like it was finding its groove again. Defense giving up 20 points. That's a little concerning, but the game was already out of hand, so they kind of maybe let off the gas a little bit. But Tennessee at 22, I like it. Now at 23, you've got the LSU Tigers, a team who, like I said earlier in my other videos, that has no margin for error, and then they lose this shootout on the road. Jaden Daniels, looked pretty good, but LSU's defense, this has got to get fixed. LSU's defense was the reason why I believe they lost this game. They allowed Ole Miss's offense to get humming, just getting the quick screens, and Samir Juggs was running the ball all over the place. LSU now sits at 3-2, and if they want any chance to win the West, they need to win out, and maybe they could do what they did last year, and maybe salvage some hope of the season. But it's going to be very interesting to say the least. At number 24, we have Fresno State out of the Mountain West. Fresno State is currently has the second active longest winning streak in college football behind the Bulldogs, the defending national champions. Fresno State has looked pretty good. They've beaten a couple Power 5 teams, Purdue, and after Jake Hayner got drafted to New Orleans, many people thought Fresno would take a dip, and they don't look like they missed a step. Fresno looks like they're pounced to maybe be a New Year's Six type team, maybe pull off what Tulane did. We shall see, but I'm glad the AP poll is giving them a little respect, and they're representing the Mountain West. And then at number 25, you have my boys down in Louisville, the Louisville Cardinals. Go Cards, baby. Woo! We finally made it into the polls, after our gutsy 13-10 win on the road at NC State. Defense forcing 3 turnovers. Jack Plummer, he was turning the ball over too. But I like where the committee giving us some respect. What we did is nothing short of good, against BC, and we've shut out Murray State. The defense coming up big in the Georgia Tech game. I like it at 25, and we got Notre Dame next weekend. Should be very interesting, especially if we want any hopes of jumping, maybe even maybe being a dark horse to win the ACC or New Year's Six. But till then, though, let's worry about Notre Dame. But ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell for more great videos and great content coming your way. I look forward to bringing you my Pick'em video coming up this week and all great things. And just a friendly reminder that next week we will be bringing Jeffrey from Only Talk Sports for college basketball preview for North Carolina, hopefully. Hopefully all goes well for that. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Sports Talk with Austin. Peace out.